And good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us and listening in on our conversation on managing consumer trends and the emerging market, sponsored by the New Jersey Food Processors Association. In my position at the Food Council, as Michelle had mentioned, I serve as a strategic partner on the board of the Food Processors Association, and they are a growing business association. And if you're not, I highly recommend the consideration of joining their membership. Today's webinar is sponsored by M&T Bank. Again, we are live streaming this conversation on Facebook, and it will be recorded on the website so you can share with colleagues and come back at it during a later date. So this afternoon, we have an astute lineup of panelists, and we look forward to hearing their insights on food industry trends and innovation. With the sudden and drastic impact of the COVID-19 crisis on the food business, we learned so much in a short window of time about supply chain pressures, resiliency, workforce absenteeism, online shopping, contactless experiences, virtual business meetings, and consumer buying habits, just to name a few. These unthinkable challenges have now created a path for opportunity, innovation, and growth. I recently wrote an op-ed in New Jersey Biz about the COVID experience and how the grocery industry built the plane while flying it, as we overcame so many obstacles so quickly. But now, 4 months later, we're paving a runway to land and take off. And that's what the panel will talk about today as we look at consumer trends and the emerging market from their unique perspective on our lifeline industry. We'll start with introductions, have a robust conversation, and when we complete the discussion, I'm going to open it up for questions by the audience. So let's get underway. Joining us, we have John Lawson, who is the senior grocery buyer for the Northeast region of Whole Foods Market. When they, in September, when they open up their Wayne location, there'll be 50 stores in the region and 19 in New Jersey. Whole Foods is the world's leading retailer in natural and organic food sales. John is an experienced retailer, and he's been with Whole Foods for 15 years and 10 as a buyer. Zak Romanoff is president of Omni Foods Sales, a food brand advocate that works with food brands to increase sales and distribution in the Metro New York marketplace. Zak runs the day-to-day operations at Omni. Richard Wester is Senior Marketing Manager with Weds Foods North America. In his current role, he is responsible for developing market strategies, providing marketing sales support, and leading the coordination and participation in customer-focused solutions based on trends in the food industry. So welcome, fellas. So let me start by asking each of you just briefly to give me a little, and the audience, some your little bit about your personal story. And we'll start with John, we'll go to Zak, and then to Richard. So John?
Yeah, so, I started at Whole Foods years ago, and I've been in natural foods for probably 25 years. Part of my passion for being in the food industry is supporting small, local, regional brands, taking the things that I've learned in my time as a buyer and helping them apply that to be successful businesses. And that's come in very handy during COVID because trying to help brands navigate, brainstorm on ways to come out of this, in the new landscape with demos affected the way they are, how to connect with customers. It's really a whole new world. And so, part of my journey has been learning how to work with folks and develop brands for our shelves. And now it's more than ever, we really need to be able to partner with, with the small brands that are developing and growing, because there's a lot of business out there that's to be had, and now more than ever we need to figure out ways to find the path to success now that the path has radically altered. So that's a little bit about my personal interests and what I'm looking to do going forward post-COVID.
Thanks, John. And Zak?
Good afternoon. My name is Zak Romanoff. I'm the president of Omni Foods Sales. Omni is known throughout the industry as a broker, but we've renamed that. We don't go by broker anymore. We go by advocate, and I'll explain why. But just a little bit background on me. I grew up in the business. My father founded two companies, a distributor and Omni Foods Sales. So as I grew up, I watched both of these companies grew up. So I had a front row seat watching what it took to grow a business in Metro New York, relationship building, the wins, but more importantly, the battles, the losses, the things that can happen. But I most importantly realized the importance of having a sound team around you. So at Omni, we have three segments. I worked in all three. As a retail rep, I had a territory of stores that I covered, that I visited every couple weeks, spoke to the department manager, got their feedback, and tried to cut in items and got to hear their concerns and what's going on at store level. I worked in the office, learning the back end side of the business, order entry, deductions, and making sure everything lines up so that all your work doesn't go for nothing. And then also as a business manager, calling on all of the 30 plus end users in the Metro New York marketplace, which New York is the most diverse and compacted area throughout the whole country in terms of diversity and store count. So to call on all of the end users in this market, every end user or retailer has their own way of doing business. I've called on every end user and now run the day-to-day operations of Omni, deciding where our resources are allocated towards. I termed the phrase brand advocate because I realized a few years ago that the name or the word broker they had a negative connotation to it. And I heard some horror stories talking with some people, and I understood why. I mean, I heard some stories of people getting suckered into bad deals and bad contracts and situations that I would never wish on anybody. And I realized, okay, this is why there's a little bit of hesitation when you say you're a broker. So in my mind, I started thinking about the word broker. What does it mean? And then mortgage broker, stock broker, they came to mind. People that you use for one-time transactions that helped you with the deal, and then you never heard from them ever again. And to label a food broker as that, maybe in the past, a broker, you needed to know someone and they got you into an account and that's how you got the business. But it's evolved, and that's not what Omni does today. We do so much more. It's a 24/7, 365 job where you got to give your principal the cost of doing business to get into an account, actually secure the business, keep the business, navigate different waters and avoid pitfalls and don't get stuck in things that are not good. Once you get the business, your competitors are going to wake up and they're going to react and they're going to do things to get the business back. So getting the business is really one step. And that's why advocate came to me, because I thought about like an attorney in court. They have a client, and whether that client is innocent or guilty, they fight for that client till the end, no matter what. They do whatever is in their best interest. And that's what Omni does. When it comes to forecasting and allocating and projecting, we do what's best for our principal at all times. So that's the term brand advocate. And people in the industry have really gravitated towards it and received it well. I've been pretty active on social media, and I've received invitations from two delegations, one from Korea and one from the UK, to speak about brand advocacy and how to grow a brand in the New York metro market. And I also was asked to speak at St. Joe's University food marketing program to a capstone course about brand advocacy.
Well, thanks, Zach. Thank you. And Richard?
Thanks, Linda. Hey, so I've been in the food industry for over 25 years, primarily in food service. I've worked in sales, calling on food service distributors, independent operators, and chain accounts. 11 years ago, I decided to make that move from sales and go get my MBA and move into marketing. And I've worked primarily in customer marketing, on enterprise selling teams, with sales, R&D, in culinary. It's given me a really, really interesting perspective on what goes on in that particular space, since I understood what goes on the street from a distributor perspective into food service. But I've also had a chance to expand my experience from food service by working with several companies that handle CPG products. So I've helped create solutions for CPG companies, food processors, as well as national accounts. So I have a huge passion for how consumers approach food, whether they're buying from the grocery store or at a restaurant, and I like to keep up with the trends in both of those segments.
Great. Thank you. And Richard, let's stick with you, and this will be our first question. From your sector perspective, what surprised you the most about the COVID outbreak? And what consumer data is guiding your decisions today?
You know, I guess what really has surprised me the most is how quickly something that we can't even see has turned our habits, eating and otherwise, completely upside down. And the food industry has really rallied behind each other in a way that I don't think I've ever seen before. I think we were talking about earlier how close of a network the food industry is, but people have really stepped up to the plate during this time to really help each other out. And customers in my sector, at least, are really engaged with us and asking them to coming to us and asking us for solutions and how we can help them. And working on that, when you talk about data, several industries and companies that work in that segment of data have really stepped up to the plate to supply information to the industry. Data Central, which covers a lot of things that happen in the food service industry, several months ago started having weekly meetings and doing consumer data, consumer surveys to understand what's going on with consumers, how are they feeling, what their sentiment is. Other companies like IRI, Numerator, and some other companies like that provided COVID websites where we could go there and you could look at information, see what consumer sentiment was, and even look at how sales trends and what kind of things were happening at retail. So those are the things that I've been dependent on over the past 3 to 4 months, and it's really given me some really good perspective on what's going on now, and hopefully where we're going to go from here.
Great, thanks, Richard. John, what surprised you the most about COVID?
Well, initially it was the stockpiling of paper. It was watching everyone everything fly off the shelf. When this started in I guess mid-March, visiting the stores, you would go into a store and you would see entire sections wiped out and customers fighting over the most obscure last item of a product that you had never seen sell out before. So it was interesting to see, initially sort of everything getting wiped out, and then it sort of settled into a pattern or routine. The biggest surprise that sort of emerged through the spring was baking. Watching everyone stock up on baking supplies, flour, yeast. Yeast is still, a struggle to get to the shelves. So those were some of the categories that really caught us off guard, and have been a scramble to really replenish. Obviously all the canned goods, less of a surprise when people are panic buying that the canned goods and large size waters, large format waters are going out that way, and the paper, of course. Ongoing, we've really, the sales have been interesting because you've actually watched the population sort of migrate out of the city and into the suburbs. So you're seeing more purchases in suburban stores and less purchases in the city stores as the city has sort of emptied out. And then with the demonstrations and those things definitely pushed more of the population out of the city. So we've seen a big spike in our suburban sales, which is a bigger basket for us. And I think that trend is probably, across a lot of retailers. And so it's been tricky, like what we're going to be facing over the next 2 years. And this is something that I think suppliers, anyone who has a brand out there should be thinking about is projections over the next 2 years. The baseline is completely skewed right now. And what we're looking at from a retail perspective is how do we sort of reset that baseline? We haven't even gotten back to a consistent level of sales at this point. So one of the things that's going to be a challenge, and where I think a lot of folks are going to run into struggles with supply chain, is how do you predict your sales? How do you plan for growth when the baseline that you're looking at is sort of upside down from what it was the year before? So with year over year, it's going to be tricky, and you're probably going to have to go back 2 years. And assuming things are going to settle down slightly differently, you're going to have to account for multiple factors in terms of customer habits, how those habits have changed, and which of those changes were temporary and which of those changes are permanent. So I think there's a lot of data work that's going to need to be done to figure out how we protect for sales going forward by category. Was it a category that was strongly impacted by COVID? Is it a category that wasn't impacted at all by COVID? And then being able to factor that. So that's one of the biggest challenges, especially in terms of data and forecasting and things like that. I think the other thing that everyone needs to keep in mind, and it's a little dark, but if there's a second wave coming, is there going to be more of the panic buying and having your supply chains ready for those events? Sort of just keeping an eye on the news to make sure that you're ready. And hopefully we've learned for many weeks this was basically a snowstorm, one snowflake at a time. We were basically watching the customers come in and shop us out every single day, like they do before a snowstorm, but it was just ongoing instead of, the day leading up to the snowstorm, then the snowstorm, then it's quiet, and then you replenish. You stretch that out over many months, and you have sort of a picture of COVID. And in terms of learnings, we're going to need to take the data that we've gotten from the COVID and really apply that to future events, so that we can, as retailers, as suppliers, what have you, we can all be prepared for the future, whatever the future holds.
Thanks, John. And Zach, what surprised you the most?
To me, it was the speed at which supermarkets responded to these new work conditions. And what I mean by that is the space in the stores, the early cleanings, the night cleanings, the hours for the elderly, the PPE. These were uncertain conditions. There was no playbook that you can read. I mean, more so than any segment of any industry, even government, supermarkets had to take these new protocols and practice them ASAP. And for the most part, there were virtually zero store closures or decreased hours. I mean, it was very minimal, considering that we had unprecedented demand. And at no greater time in my professional career have I been so proud to be part of the food industry, because the entire economy, I mean, think about it, no schools, no entertainment, no restaurants, no clubs, all the places that people go out to get food were done. And largely for 4 months, or at least in the Metro New York area, supermarkets had fed the country, and with largely no hiccups. So to me, it's as impressive as anything else during COVID. And I think when we look back on this moment in years past, we're going to look at supermarkets as a shining star through this time.
Yes, thanks, Zach. So let's talk about supply chain challenges, Zach, in your part of the business. How did it impact your business specifically, those challenges? How did you have to adjust?
Well, supply chain affected everybody. I don't know anyone that wasn't affected by the supply chain. Manufacturers were struggling to fill orders 100%. The majority of them still are to this day not filling 100%. There are a few lucky out there, including some that are on this call, but it's largely been all across the board, where some people are okay, some are not. How do we handle it? We handle it a few different ways. I mean, the first one was, it's been a new daily task to track every order that we've received from every customer and then match that up with what's shipping out. So we're on a normal day, normal times, we're used to 99 or higher % fill rates. I mean, and we've had significantly less and different levels from everyone. So number one was, we collected the orders from everyone. We collected everyone's orders. And even if we knew we couldn't fulfill it 100%, on the date that they desire it, we still collected it. And we took everything within reason that we thought we could pull. And we made a database and we held it. And some weeks were better than others. And some weeks a significant amount of product went, and some weeks a good amount of product did not go. But we maintained that total, and we maintained communication with the customer. We were upfront, we were transparent, and we let them know. And also remember, in the beginning of March or mid-March, April, I mean, manufacturers were slammed with this unprecedented demand. They didn't even know where they were going to send product. I mean, we were relentlessly.
Zach, we're hanging on your words. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yes,
There you go.
sorry about that. So the supply chain was wild. We maintained the communication on both sides. And as we maintained this communication, trust grew. And as the trust grew, more product was ordered and more product was given. And then gradually, we got things to a better level. So we're still crawling out from some backhauls, from some piles of orders. We're still digging out, getting them back into stores. But it's been a wild time. I mean, starting out, New York, New Jersey was the hotbed. This is where everything was going on. And other parts of the country saw the closures and saw the protocols, and they were like, wow, like that's wild. Okay, but we're getting really big orders. Do what you got to do. And then as time went on, COVID spread around the country, and now those manufacturers are dealing with it too. Now we're all in the same boat in this together. How are we going to deal with this unprecedented demand, and how are we going to keep all of our customers satisfied in these incredible situations? So we asked for a lot of transparency. We asked a lot of our principals to put letters together on their company letterhead with a state of what's going on, what items are on, what items are off, what's the status. And for better or for worse, we let our customers know that. And it's not always what they want to hear, but we let our customers know what they could expect of us.
Right, thanks. Richard, same question. What were your supply chain challenges and the impact to your business?
I think that primarily with us, because we deal with a lot of processors, we had a lot of processors who do both food service and retail, and all of a sudden, within a week, their production schedule completely changed. Their food service sales, or supply they needed for food service, dropped off immediately, and they needed to ramp up in retail in order to catch up. And I think that in our business, we were lucky enough to run a business that we have a lot of strong connections, as well as plants around the country. I think that our customers are really looking to us to be able to turn really, really quickly to meet their immediate demands. And I think that builds a lot of equity with us, with our customers in general. So I think as we continue to move on through this, and if another spike happens or whatever the future is, our ability to react to those customers really, really quickly, team with them, and understand that we're in this together, like Zach was saying, has really, really benefited any rough patches we may run across with our customers.
And John, from the food retailer perspective, what were the biggest challenges that impacted your business? I know you alluded to a few things earlier, but
yeah, I mean, I think distribution is one of the big ones. Being able to get trucks, not only trucks from the suppliers to the warehouses, but from the warehouses to the stores. And it took some work and some creativity to really figure out backhaul and getting a truck filled and getting it to the store with adequate product. I mean, you would bring a truck in and in the beginning it would get cleaned out right away. You put it out on the floor and everything was gone. And I think that was across across the region and across most retailers. I think the social distancing has presented a lot of challenges in terms of how many customers can be in the store, from the sales force side, to shopping in the aisles. One-way aisles has been a new experience in COVID. Also in terms of production, you have to remember that where the food production is actually happening, you have to follow the same rules of social distancing and timing shifts, figuring out how to try to keep up as close to 100% as possible, but with less people, with people spaced apart, like where people could have been in a group before, they've got to be apart. And so we've seen a lot of struggles and a lot of sort of crimps in the supply chain from suppliers as they've tried to figure out that piece as well. So I think again, this goes back to a lot of the learnings. Like these are the things where, you know, if you want to call it COVID-1, where we're learning the ways that when there's like Richard said, this invisible force that we can't see, but it's having such an impact on our lives, is learning how to adapt to that effectively, and you know, keeping detailed notes on that, so that if it happens again, or when something similar pops up again, that we're able to actually apply those learnings and make it run smoother next time. Because really, it's like, you know, how do you adapt quickly to service your customers, whether you're the supplier, the distributor, or the retailer.
You know, I have a question here from the audience, and I think it's an interesting question. It says, what was the biggest mistake that the industry reacted to when it came to COVID? Richard, you want to tackle that one? What's the biggest mistake? Mistake is a kind of a strong term, because I think there were more challenges, and I think members like took those challenges on and were pretty nimble.
Yeah, I think they did take on challenges in an unprecedented situation. I think that there has been an inability, because of how this has affected people, to understand what the consumer trends are, and to really home in on that. So I think that there's some frustration with consumers as they still continue to shop in the grocery shop and are still not able to find some things that they are looking for. So I think that's a bit of a challenge that the industry sort of needs to figure out how to pivot more quickly to meet customer demand. I still today, I've said this to several people as we talk about sort of what has been the sustaining things that have continued to go on since the pandemic, is the growth of products in the ethnic aisle, for instance, as consumers look for adventure when they go out and cook. But I consistently go down that aisle every week to go to the grocery store, and you can't find simple things you'd be able to find before, like coconut milk. So I think the ability for processors and grocery stores to get a better understanding of what consumers are looking for and how to feed that and to get it to consumers as quickly as possible would be my input.
Zach, do you see any mistakes made by the industry?
I don't. I mean, if it's hard to find something, you've got to find, but I can find one thing. And that one thing is that we had record unemployment, right? I mean, it was like, what, 30 or 40 million unemployment claims that occurred in the heart of COVID. And then we had people that weren't showing up to work. So we had plants that there was unprecedented demand of orders. Plants couldn't get people to work in those plants because they were either afraid to go or sick or what have you. And there was no training, or there was no safety net, or there was no pool of people that manufacturers or distributors could pull from to then get people to work on time, while we had all these people that wanted to work, but there was no bridge to get these people where the economy actually needed them.
Great. And John, how about you? Any big mistakes by the industry?
I would definitely refashion that mistakes as challenges. I think there are a lot of challenges that we've all had to figure out. I can think back myself to where I would have liked to have moved faster on certain initiatives to get products onto the shelf quicker. And you know, I can look back and say, wow, I could have made that decision quicker and gotten that truck on the road faster, or bought out that inventory on that product to refill the shelves, keep the keep everything going. But you know, hindsight is 20/20, and I definitely think that just going back to sort of the reframe that I've had is that these are things that we need to learn from, and make sure that we're making the quicker decisions in the future, because it's been a lot of adapting, and there were a lot of things that we didn't know at the beginning, right? I mean, you want to talk about cleaning stores and things like that. I feel like we adapted very quickly on that, but a lot of the information has changed since this started. So things that might look like a mistake now were things that we just didn't know then. So yeah, I think there's challenges, and I think to Zach's point, we've as an industry, we've done very well to rise up and meet those challenges as best we can.
Right, and John, here's a follow-up from the audience.
Sure.
any of those setbacks or challenges, will they have any impact as you are developing new stores now? Because Whole Foods is growing, you continue to open stores. So those COVID experiences now, will that have an impact as you expand here in the Northeast region or throughout the country?
Yeah, I'm sure there, you know, different things are going to get factored into that. You know, you're going to have to factor that into anything from like aisle widths to give people a little bit more space, to making sure that you know, you have space for customers to stand. I mean, if you think about it, one of the big things that happened was customers having to stand outside waiting to go into a space. So I can't imagine that people aren't thinking about, okay, if people are going to have to stand outside, let's make it more comfortable for them while they stand outside. So I'm sure there's all sorts of those types of elements. I'm not actually on the design side, but I'm certain that those things are already being thought about and incorporated across the retail industry, frankly.
So Zach, as a brand advocate, how do you communicate when many of your suppliers and your customers have a stay-at-home emergency order? How do you remain relevant right now during a global pandemic in your part of the business?
Well, the number one word is the F word, fulfillment. Everybody wants orders being filled. So the best job that you can do with that, that's the number one thing, but that is the name of the game. Everybody wants their product. And if you can't order it, you know, fulfill it 100%, then people just want the lines of communication to be open. So transparent communication on both sides. And we did that, like I said, for better or for worse. In terms of suppliers, Omni's principals, Omni sent them or had phone call weekly updates where we put together PowerPoint presentations of what's going on in the market. And this was really key at the beginning because, like I said, not everyone was experiencing this the way that the Northeast was in the beginning. So our team put together feedback from supermarket owners. We even included, I mean, in our area, we lost there were some $1 million supermarkets that owners passed away from COVID. There were some other staff that got sick and are no longer working and also passed away. There were people that I sat in meetings with less than a month before COVID started that have now passed away. So we documented all these things along with the protocols that were going in place in stores, as well as pictures showing like the limits, you know, buy one item, buy two items. Our manufacturer partners couldn't believe it. They were like, oh my goodness, we knew the orders were unprecedented, but they couldn't believe that they were still getting gargantuan sized orders and people were being limited to 1 or 2 packages each. And that was a reality. So we brought them into the fold with us and we explained what we were dealing with. Secondly, about staying relevant, you know, our team has weekly calls and we were, you know, about 2 months into COVID, a lot of our team members were saying, hey, we want to do something to make a difference to help. A lot of people can just go on a website and donate money, but our team wanted to get on the front lines. So we put out letters to all of our principals and we asked for donations. We got a good amount back. We got them all, and then we mixed them all up and put together care packages. And our team went out to different shelters, to different hospitals, to fire stations, literally all kinds of first responders, and we gave them these packages. And we, you know, documented it, sent it back to our principals, and they loved it because they got to see people that, you know, had masks on at the beginning when people didn't really know what COVID was. So that's what we did for like on the supplier side. And then with customers, again, maintaining transparent communication. We took every order that they wanted to give. And remember, it went a little bit crazy. You know, the first month or two in, there was panic buying and there were some people in the industry that spread these rumors that there was going to be a meat shortage. Now, I wasn't appreciative of those claims because I don't believe our country was close to a meat shortage. I believe those brands were in trouble getting shut down by the USDA. But regardless, there was panic buying going on. And we had people just placing POs and it didn't matter. Just here's 10 POs. When can you fill it? When can you send it? So we took every product and then it became a daily exercise, communicating I can't tell you how many allocation phone calls we were on because this unprecedented demand hit virtually all of our principals, and they didn't know where to send the product. I mean, they didn't really know where to send it. So if you didn't have someone that was aggressively and relentlessly calling and asking your regional and your director and your VP for product, you were going to get cut. Your customers were not going to get product that week. So it was a wild time. I mean, I really don't know what to say, but just in summary, we over communicated. We had daily communication open, and that's how we stayed relevant.
And Richard, from your perspective, your sector, how did you remain relevant with these stay-at-home orders? We were just speaking prior to this call just about, travel restrictions now and what that means to your part of the business.
Yeah, we've really had to sort of alter our sales guys, stay on the road. I'm with them quite often to go see and talk to customers. I have to agree with Zach that, transparency and open communication is really, really relevant. We started soon after this started, in order to keep our sales guys in tune with what was going on out there in the industry and for them to offer value to their customers. We started a COVID newsletter that we put out once a month. We're continuing it now. Just to give them update on what's going on with trends inside of retail as well as food service, and give them some other information and in a platform that they can communicate that on to their customer. And the customer feels like they're getting something from us. A lot of our customers, like Zach indicated, are really busy with just trying to manage production and how do they manage inventory shortages and that type of stuff. They may not be able to keep up with what's going on in the industry, what the trends are, what consumers are talking about. So we wanted to give our sales guys on some equipment that they could use to stay in touch with relevant information with our customers. And that's helped us a lot.
Thanks. John, I'm going to move this to the contactless and frictionless experience. And we're seeing that surge of online shopping. And so at Whole Foods, how are you responding to that crush of business and that new trend?
Yeah, I mean, that's that's on our Prime side. So we have the Prime Now operation, which really came into its sort of full glory with the needs of COVID, and I feel like it's been challenging, but it's also been a big opportunity to really pressure test this program. So I don't really work on the Prime side too much, so I can't speak to it in detail, but I know it's been a very very strong growth on that side, and our stores have done very well with it, and our customers have responded well. But it's been challenging because it's you're trying to get orders out quickly. You're trying to make sure that you have enough enough appointments.
Oh, John froze for a second. John, I don't know if he can hear us, but maybe Richard, I'll flip it over to you for contactless and frictionless experience. How does that impact your sector of the business?
Yeah, so I think from our perspective, I bring this up with customers every time we talk to them. We've done several virtual presentations, and it's something I always include because it is such a huge deal as consumers really change the way they shop. I think it's a fascinating phenomenon myself. And I think it's my job to let our customers know how it's going to impact them. And that is primarily to gain an understanding of how the customer is going to interact with your products on these platforms. So now that they're not wandering the aisles of the store and they can't see a plethora of what you have there in the cold case, how are they going to interact with your products while they're picking their products online? So I think that's really important for them to understand, and for them to understand, hey, how does your brand introduce new products in this space when there's now no in-store promotion? So these are things we probably have to sort of figure out. I don't think we have all the answers today for that, but I think it's really, really important to figure out ways to reach this growing audience. It takes about 66 days to form a habit, and as consumers have been online shopping and shopping in carts for the past 100 or so days, this is probably a trend that's not going to go away.
Right. And Zach, what about you from your perspective?
Well, the contactless and frictionless experience, absolutely. Everybody wants it. I mean, we saw this before COVID we saw the self-checkout machines starting to appear in stores. But has anyone else experienced going through those machines and it freezes up, or it can't read your brand of fruit, and then you need to stop and wait and someone has to help you with it? I mean, I experience that quite often. So I think the technology can get better with self-checkout. I think it's a matter of time before it does. And then there's further ways to innovate. I mean, just because you're going to have self-checkout and not have cashiers there, why don't you re-educate and train and put those people back into the stores and let them be product experts? You know, let them be floating around the store, easily accessible with shirts that say, "Hi, I'm here to help, ask me a question," or even put a blue light up where you, like on a college campus, you hit the blue light and then someone comes to help you. And again, that helps. You don't have this buildup of people at the register, and it helps people to enjoy the overall experience of shopping in the store.
Thank you. So now let's look at how has this crisis incentivized innovation in your segment of the business? And Richard, we'll start with you.
So, you know, I think that there is, for us, there's a little bit of a forced or crisis innovation happening with some processors who are primarily looking for ways to reutilize equipment that they may have used for food service with that business down, and now they're trying to meet a retail demand. And they really are looking towards their long-term suppliers, like someone like us who would know their process and understand it, to reach out to us with our experience and say, hey, how can we use this equipment? What can we produce for retail that we are producing on this line for food service? So I really think that it creates an opportunity for suppliers who have those long-term relationships and understand who the customers are. And I also think that since we are a flavor house and we are really providing processors with ingredients that are going to delight customers, that there really is a need to meet the customer where they are now and what meal occasions they're trying to solve for. Consumers want comfort, they want a little bit of experimentation and safety. And I think it's really an exciting time for us to collaborate with our customers and our processors to meet those customers where they are today.
Right. And John, what do you think about from this crisis? What is incentivizing innovation in the grocery industry?
Yeah, I'm sorry for getting cut off there before. I think the challenge on internet has also been a result of COVID as well, and keeping a stable internet line, even on high speed, can sometimes be a little challenging. So I think innovation is sort of ongoing right now. I think a lot of folks who have been impacted, a lot of the brands that have been impacted, suppliers that have been impacted by COVID, are sort of trying to figure out how to make things work in the new landscape. A good example is our bulk sections, where we've removed a lot of our scoop bulk and had to sort of figure out where you used to be able to scoop bulk out of a bin or off a table. We've had to close that down, and so a lot of those brands are having to sort of figure out how to come up with new ways to get their product onto the shelf, into that space. So working on some innovation in that. Also with demos, I had mentioned it before, brands are really trying to figure out how to connect with customers in the Zoom age, where you can't have, it's contactless, like we were saying. So how do you actually, how do you find your customer and drive sales into the retailers that you're partnered with, and how do you get product into the customer's hands where you used to give out a sample in a cup, or on a napkin? Like, that's not realistic anymore. And so, and I've definitely, my message to the brands has been the ones that can innovate this and come up with the ideas that can hold for the foreseeable future are the ones that are going to win. I guess you make your money during the war, right? I mean, if you see the opportunity, you figure it out, and you can. Those are the folks they're going to win coming out of this.
And Zak, what do you see as innovation in the field?
So what we had for the last 4 months was a tremendous amount of pressure was put on retailers. We saw that online food delivery services were completely overwhelmed, out of stock, not ready for the demand, and you're waiting for days or weeks or can't even place an order. So we know that that technology is going to get better to handle the next COVID, right? We all know that the technology online, you will be able to order, better online. But I truly believe and also there are some easy technological, innovations that we could see, like having store counters that know who's in the store at what time, how many people are in the store at one time, and other things like that. But I truly believe this is an opportunity for supermarkets to realize that the biggest area of opportunity for innovation is customer service. Similar to the Apple Store, when you go there and you have a problem with your phone, they literally don't let you leave until your problem is solved. They have a genius there. They answer your question. I think the level of customer service at an Apple Store is phenomenal. And a company like Apple, people say they could have gone fully automation and they could have gone, people less. And there's a lot of companies that subscribe to that business model. But I think really people want to talk to people, and people want to go into stores and they want to talk to someone. We have brilliant marketers in the food industry, brilliant. They are so good. I am trained to work in this industry and to sell these products. And I go to stores and I get confused and lost based on the attributes and the false advertising and the large, colorful claims that some products have. Are these equal? What's the difference? What if there was an expert that was easily available that could help you, that could make your experience that much better? I mean, think about it. Wouldn't you like to hear from your local store's store manager? Like to get an email from him and say, hey, you know what? I've got a party coming up. I'm going to have all these things. Like, do you have it? I mean, those kinds of interactions, they're just non-existent right now. And we need to do better, or else we're just going to succumb to online technology and just let it go that way. But I truly believe that's what people want. Think about it, like Home Depot. You can look online, look up, a gallon of paint or a paintbrush, and it will look up in the closest store to you and even tell you how many items are there, in what bay and in what aisle. And then you could go there and you're in and out. Why can't we expect the same thing from supermarkets?
Good point. So how would you grade government in their response and their directives, and how has it impacted your business? And Richard, I'll start with you. What do you think about government's response to this global pandemic and how it's had an impact on your business?
So I would probably say that I'd probably give the federal government probably a D for failing to provide some sort of coordinated and consistent messaging on this particular cross crisis. But I'd also give local governments probably a C+ for trying to navigate a national and global crisis without a coordinated response. I think for us, it's really been a matter of everyone in the food industry just having to react and sort of like stand out on your own. I think it has affected us in the way that it's brought people in my industry much closer together to try to find solutions together and to make the experience less threatening than it has been. So I think from a company perspective, it's definitely brought us closer to our customers and helping them navigate what's going on out there.
Right. How about you, Zach? What do you think about government's response?
I would give the government's response an A-. And that's because, and again, we're talking about the food industry only here, not about regular citizens. Food industry only, A-. And that's because there was almost zero interruption in store hours despite all the new protocols that were put into place. The government basically let supermarkets what they do and they get out of the way. And in this emergency time, that's exactly what we needed. I mean, even when you had these food shortage rumors, it was wild. I had people that were calling me up. Zach, is there going to be enough steak, beef, chicken? Do I need to go stack up? And I had to explain to them that, hey, no, just because you hear the executive of a large company say that there's going to be a supply issue or take out a full page ad in the New York Times, they have self-serving interests for doing that. So in the end of April, when President Trump enacted the Defense Production Act and basically claimed food manufacturers were essential and basically held them harmless or gave them immunity from lawsuits from people, I breathed a sigh of relief because plants were getting shut down by the USDA, and that would have caused a problem. Now, again, we were not close to a food shortage. The rumors were, that's it. They were rumors. But if you continually had plants closed and you had unprecedented demand, you would have had people fighting in the store over the last piece of a chicken. You know, thank goodness we didn't have that. So I know that this is a hard decision, and I see the points on the other side too, because at the same time, right, people weren't going to work and they didn't want to go in an unsafe environment. And the CDC and OSHA guidelines were exactly that. They were guidelines. They weren't mandatory. And that's the only reason why I didn't give the federal government or any level of government an A+. It's because some people still did and do have to subject themselves to an environment where there's not proper spacing. I mean, I've walked dozens of plants. These places are designed to cram as many people into them as possible so that you could put as many lines in there as possible and maximize your efficiency. To all of a sudden say you need to space these people out 6 feet apart, you need to have plastic dividers so that they can't, no, oxygen cells can transfer. I mean, and all the temperature checks and the excessive cleanings and the PPE costs. Under normal circumstances, you would give a manufacturer months to get in line with all this. You can't expect them to get it in line during a pandemic, during all this craziness, literally, like you said, Linda, while the plane is burning and flying down.
Right. John, how about you? How do you think government did? You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I think the government, I think the government response, I think everyone has their opinion about how the government responded. I think in our case, we stepped up as a company, as a region, store by store, addressed the concerns of the community, of the relevant governing agency, the county, the town, the state, and adapted our processes and followed the CDC guidelines. I think we took it upon ourselves to implement some rigid policies right up front so that we were able to address the concerns of customers and protect our team members as best we could. We were one of the first to be providing masks to our customers. We've got, rigorous cleaning processes in place. And I think a lot of that has been in partnership with local and state governments and also, like I said, following the CDC guidelines. So, I think regardless of how you feel about the government response, I think we, as businesses, I think we stepped up and did what we needed to do to protect our communities and our team members as best we could.
So John, let me ask you, this is a question from the audience. What categories did you think underperformed or performed lower than expected during this high demand period? Was there anything that surprised you that didn't perform well in any category?
I think a lot of single serve items. I think a lot of customers shifted to multi-serve. So where you would have yogurt that would normally perform at a certain level, you would have you'd have a multi-serve yogurt that would do well and a single serve yogurt that would do less well. I think it's the same with beverages, water, things like that, where the larger formats did better and the smaller formats definitely underperformed during COVID. So, I think that's what we really settled into was people were looking to buy in larger formats. And I think that's something that a lot of suppliers should keep in mind as they develop product lines. Also, Richard had mentioned comfort food was a trend. So the trends very quickly shifted towards familiar comfort food items where, and away from things like, some of the special diets and things like that. So, I think it was really interesting to see the trends shift so quickly. I've never really seen anything quite like it, but it's a good lesson for the future.
Right. So before we wrap up, if anyone has any questions, we'll open it up. I have been asking questions on and off, but I think this next question is a good one. And these are for new processors and other new food business companies. now that a lot of these expos are canceled and a lot of these food shows, which provided that opportunity for retailers and distributors and different chains and parts of the business to meet and socialize and try out new products. Do you have any suggestions now, as we're seeing a lot of this social distancing, a lot of these programs put on hold, that how does a business now kind of break into the industry if you're not going to have that type of experience of a public expo or a specialty show? And Zach, I'm going to start with you.
I was going to say, can I answer that one?
Sure, I can tell you were looking for it.
Contact Omni Foods Sales. This is why you have a brand advocate. We have relationships with the buyers, the directors, the owners of the 1,500 plus stores in the New York Metro Marketplace. We've had dozens of brands reach out to us and send us samples. And actually, you know, it's actually pretty cool. Even though there's no formal corporate meetings, we have presented these products to people in the field and in other places, and new items are getting authorized and sales are growing during this time. So now more than ever, the value of having someone that has relationships with the buyers and everyone in the network, this is really a time for people like Omni to shine.
Richard, how about you?
Well, you know, I think that we've gone to a really world of virtual meetings like we're doing here. But I think that companies, and even my company, is looking at how we step that up. So how do you present product ideas to a customer where you're used to going in and walking in their door, getting in their kitchen, doing a presentation and providing them with product. Now we're set with companies who are not going back to their office till September or October, but they're still trying to run business. So we're looking at what that looks like from a company, what kind of packaging do we put together to send customer samples of what our products can be or how our products can interact with their particular products that are just as impressive as the in-person presentations that we do. And that would include videos. We've looked into video equipment. What does a virtual meeting look like in terms of what do you implement? I mean, how do you engage the customer? So I think really leveraging these Zoom meetings, in more than just face-to-face, but how do you get the product in their hand is also very, very important.
Right. And John, I mean, as a buyer, I mean, I'm sure a lot of taste testing and you know, kind of kicking the tires on different products is very important in your position. So what's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's been challenging. We have maintained our category review process. I'm really proud of that. The fact that we really didn't miss a beat. We've continued to review the different rounds of categories through 2020 and into 2021 at this point. In terms of receiving products, you know, a lot of it is just maintaining the communication with the brands, the brokers, advocates who are out there to keep the conversations going. And as we see new products presented to us, making sure we're getting them set into the proper review period, and then coming up with a strategy to actually receive samples in a way that's safe, that's efficient, and then coming up with creative ways to get that product in front of different people. I mean, the way I like to work is to get samples in front of the people who can give the best possible feedback on that. So some driving around and making deliveries and then, you know, having like a conference call like this to you know, go through the attributes and things like that. But you know, like everything else, it's just requiring a creative response to an unprecedented situation and figuring out how to keep things moving forward, because we definitely don't want to stop. We want to keep moving forward. We want to keep offering new products to our customers and having you know, offering people the best possible experience in a difficult time.
Well, thank you. We're coming up on an hour conversation. This is great. It's gone by very quickly, and I appreciate everyone's input. And we got to some of the questions here on our Zoom chat. So we thank everyone for asking those questions, and we tried to kind of work them in here to our discussion. So I want to thank all our panelists, Richard, Zach, and John, for taking time to speak with us this afternoon. I also want to thank our sponsor, M&T Bank, and of course our host, the New Jersey Food Processors Association. Remember, we have recorded this discussion today, and it will be on the Food Processors website probably in the coming days. So folks can always go back at a later time to review it and share it with other colleagues in the industry. And again, this is a great discussion. And if anyone wants to reach me directly at the Food Council, my email is ldoherty@njfoodcouncil.com. And again, fellas, thank you for a very informative and insightful discussion. And I appreciate you taking time to talk to us this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Linda.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.